on our next speaker to just commence his own presentation. This is what Mr. Alan Jack? Is that correct? Mr. Alan Jack, please, let's have your take on some of these matters.
Yeah, thank you.
Briefly, please.
We're in Shonga in Kwara State. We've been here for 9 years nearly now, and we are still battling with basics. Visas, residence permits, still a problem. Finance, there's got to be a policy. It's been talked about since we first came here 9 years ago on cheap agricultural funding. It is still not in place. The funding has to be put in there for a long-term loans, for land, for clearing, for building, short-term for your cropping, and then your medium-term loan for your tractors, your implements, and that sort of stuff. That, without the proper funding, you are never ever going to get agriculture off to a sustainable level. You've got to put implementable policies in place for import substitution. You've got there the milk. I'm also dairy. But we're spending over $1 billion on dairy products to be brought into this country. All we are doing is subsidizing the European, Australian, and New Zealand dairy farmers at the expense of the Nigerians. It's not rocket science, guys. It's not. The only problem is it's going to take a long time to get to that level. To get a dairy cow to start producing milk, it takes a long time. But if you don't take this first step, forget it. Forget it. You've got to start getting the dairy industry, the powdered milk guys, using a certain percentage of raw milk into their products. We have started it from Shonga with Nutrisima and Peak Milk. Take our product every day. They send vehicles, collect it. They are starting to use it. It's got to be forced on to get the dairy industry up. Policies that are around at the moment. The chicken business. Brazilian chicken is landed here at about 135 naira a kg. The poultry farmer is paying 150 to 180 naira for a day-old chick. How can he compete against Brazil? He can't. When we first arrived in Nigeria, we noticed this big road going from Ilorin down to Lagos, and was told that this road would be complete dual highway by the end of 2005. Well, let me tell you, today, 2013, it is still not complete. How are people, farmers, supposed to move their products to and from the market when you don't have a road infrastructure? You see the vehicles coming laden with tomatoes. It's taken them 5 days to get there from wherever they've come from. The pressure has squashed half the tomatoes. They are just throwing stuff away. You've got one of the largest rivers in Africa, the fourth largest river in Africa. How much water is taken out of that river and put onto crops? I can tell you, 0. 0. When you've got all that water, why is nobody irrigating? You've got to use those resources. With using irrigation, you double cropping. If you double crop, the poor small-scale farmer, you're doubling his income per annum. To be fairly blunt, it appears a lot of the policies that are about, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And that is causing huge problems. This minister, he knows about the problem. But to get that, the road minister, well, he doesn't care about the roads because, you've got to tackle it as a whole from the president down. And I'm afraid rhetoric is all we are getting for the commercial agriculture. It's now time to walk the walk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We are going to walk the walk from now. From Alan, we'll be walking to Mr. Paul Gbedebo, who is going to be speaking to us. He's from the flour mills of Nigeria. I'm sure he will have some good story. The Minister of Agriculture, I'm sure will be listening very carefully because we had good meetings with them before we launched into this particular phase we are in now. Because of time, I'm going to be less generous now. We'll please ask you to do maybe 3 minutes, maybe, because people are going to ask you questions and you have opportunity to come back to speak some more on these matters. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's a pity that the time is very limited now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have given more information on this. But because, I tend to share the feelings of the other panelists. Think about Shunga, because we are really focusing on policies and issues here. If you think of Shunga, I've worked with the farmers in Shunga. I've worked with Alan for many years, and his colleagues. Many of them left. He's still standing in, but many of them have left. We need to find out why is this so. And we will not do justice to that if we do not also look beyond that. Think about 20, 30 years ago. We all know that big businesses, big investors, they are in business to make money. And they would have looked very critically at the business models before going in. Think about companies like Texaco, Guinness, Nigerian Breweries, UAC, Leventis, Dunlop. They had all been in big-time agribusinesses before in the last 20, 30 years. But they are all out. Policies, incentives, some have been in place. So we need to really find out what are the critical factors that made those companies to fail. What did we not do right that we have to do right now? And that is where I just want to focus on. First, before policies and incentives are put in place, do we have a dialogue with the stakeholders so that you know exactly what these stakeholders will need as policies and incentives, and then we can come to a convergence. 2, do we have a clear and definitive policies? Clear and definitive policies. Policies that are not made in a hurry. It's very, very important because that seems to be one of our problems. Then thirdly, our policies, are they sustainable?